So my name is Brett Robinson. I'm the operations manager. You'll see some panelists on your screen. Those should be the only people that you can see because we're doing a Zoom webinar. We're not going to be able to speak or see you. You can see us. Those panelists that you'll see are Mark Dunn. Mark's going to speak about some staff and clergy issues. He's the staff parish relations chair, and Julia Harris, who is our guide team chairperson. And Scott will be joining us here shortly as well. So as we work towards a new way of doing town hall, at least for now, I just wanted to update you on a couple things that you can expect from today's town hall meeting. Like I had mentioned, the speaking capability is not available. We ask that if you would like to ask questions, which we always take at the end of all of our town hall meetings, that you do that via the Q&A function, which you will see on your Zoom bar. There's a Q&A, you'll click on that and type those questions in. You can ask the questions at any time, but we'll look at those at the end. It can sometimes be distracting if we're trying to give a presentation and also trying to answer questions in the middle of it. So at any time, feel free to do the question on the Zoom, and we'll get to that at the end and make sure we answer all of those. We are recording this, so I'm recording it as of the beginning of the town hall. And we'll make that recording available just like we do with all of our other town hall meetings. So if you have to leave early, if there's something you miss or we get disconnected, know that we are recording that and we'll put it out there for everyone to see on our church website. If we don't answer your question, sufficiently enough, feel free to email me. We'll make sure that we connect with you. It's probably the only time I really want to talk about it, but it's probably the first thing we just need to talk about and go over COVID-19 and the response from the beginning of March. We all know that we received information, I think on a Friday, that a lot of things were closing. We made the decision to close, and part of that decision was not only done with the local church, but also with our Florida United Methodist Conference, which we have had a lot of directives from over the course of this pandemic. So they gave us that information that, hey, we need to be postponing any live events that we have, and that may be different from other non-denominational churches or denominational churches that made different decisions. So you'll have to understand that I think we probably would have closed down anyways, but at the same time, we were getting information from them. And then there was some things from the governor and things like that we made that decision. So that was in the middle of March. I mean, obviously at that time, I think they were saying 2 weeks, and then we were talking about maybe a month. We're thinking, okay, well, we'll relaunch at some point here pretty soon. And we instead relaunched the week of June 15th. So I'll talk about it in the next slide, but I'm pretty sure it was about 15 weeks or something like that. And that was dictated by the Florida United Methodist Conference, because they had told us, hey, listen, we're really wanting you to not have live in-person services. They started to allow those based on your current circumstances of your local church beginning June 15th. So then we started those at that time. So aside from this week, which I'll get into here towards the end as kind of an update, we have had 5 weeks of in-person services. Those do look a little bit different. We had made the decision to do signups. We do signups so that we can cap the number of people that we have in the sanctuary, and we know who was there. And that came into play this weekend also with a register of people with their names and emails. We are requiring face coverings. That took a very long time to get to that decision, but it was the right decision that we require face coverings. And honestly, I think a lot of our conversation about it was, one, how do we enforce it? and that hasn't been an issue. So I think that's really neat for anyone who's stepped foot on our campus or come to worship. We have not had the conversation about why you need to be wearing a face covering or turning someone away because they refuse to. So that's pretty neat. I was really pleased with that. And we're doing social distancing. Even more so as our attendance at live worship has gone down. I think when we first launched it, we were at close to 80 to 100 people with some of the rise in cases, and that worship is not the exact same as it was in March. We have seen a decline in the people that are coming. So that allows us to spread people out even further. I think that there is nobody that's even close to the 6 foot requirement. We are 10 feet. People are 20 feet away, every other pew, and sometimes only one household per pew. So there's really a great distance between people, and we have been doing pretty well with that. We have allowed growth groups, but no other activities at this time. We have very limited office hours. We've done that so that we have half of our staff here on Monday, Wednesday, the other half here on Tuesday, Thursday, so that we're not intermingling a lot. If there was some type of COVID type of issue at the church office, then there'd be very few people that may have come in close contact with that person. And then, although we were moving forward with some relaunch plans to maybe relaunch some children's and youth activities, clearly it's not the right time to do that. So we have paused any type of relaunch of any other activities other than just the very limited in-person worship and the office hours, along with growth groups at this time. There's no outside groups that are meeting. Again, no children's or youth or any activities like that. So let's talk about real quick, although it's not on the slide. We were notified yesterday afternoon that a volunteer did test positive for COVID-19, and we made the decision to not have live worship today, and also contact all of those people that were in live worship this past Sunday when this person was there. We don't know if they had it that Sunday. What we do know is that if somebody tests positive, you're supposed to notify everybody that was on the church campus within that 14-day period. So that's what we have done. And with that sign up, we had a list of everybody who had signed up to attend, and then we could very easily notify them about that issue. Scott addressed it in the worship service earlier today, and it appears that that volunteer is doing well so far. As we know, obviously with some of the pandemic stuff, we're going to talk about our financial position, and how that's affected our financial position rather. Normally Rob Bentley would give the financial report, but I'm giving that today for him. I believe he's out of town. I guess I could have put that on the last slide, but it's relevant to this one too, in that we have not had in-person worship services for 14 straight weeks from March into June. And we do receive a considerable amount of gifts through the worship service itself in our boxes, whether that be loose cash or designated checks. And people have shifted to online, but given some of the turmoil in the economy and with people losing jobs or being furloughed, things of that nature, we have seen a 7% giving decrease from last year, year to date. In some of the research that we've done, that seems to be pretty standard with other churches. So we're at this, again, we're at the 7%. We have offset that giving by in the month of April, our church campus was entirely closed because we deemed the majority of our church services at the office as being something that could be done from home and not essential for travel. So those staff members continue to work at home and I believe from that period, from March till now, we have reduced our expenses by 11%. So we've offset our giving decline with savings in expenses. So we're continue to be in a good financial position. Just a report on our annuity. We used to have, we formerly had an annuity through Voya. I think it's ING now. But that was closed, and it was closed for a number of different reasons. But one of the main reasons is that we didn't know at the time that we closed the church and didn't know what the immediate future held, that we would have that cash available for any type of emergency. Now that I believe the guide team feels comfortable with reinvesting those funds, but we realize that we need a solid investment policy statement so that money is being invested in accordance with what our guide team has authorized that person to do. So if you were ever to take a look at our financials and see that we have 321,000 there, that was a result of that annuity. Our bank accounts, some of them do get over that $250,000 FDIC protection. So we're working on setting up different money market accounts to spread that out and reduce the risk in accordance with our CPA financial review that we receive each year. So we did open up a money market account with Intercoastal Bank. And then that plays into our next bullet point there, where you may be aware that there was an SBA PPP, it's called Paycheck Protection Program, that was for employers or small businesses, including not-for-profits and religious organizations that have less than 500 employees, which is us. And the purpose of that loan, which if it is spent in accordance with their forgiveness application, means that the money that you receive will be forgiven, goes to paying employees, keeping them on the payroll. It goes to utilities, and there's a certain criteria there where you have to spend 75% of it on keeping employees on the payroll, which we have done. So Mark will talk about that in a few minutes, that despite our giving going down, we continue to pay employees, and then we also applied for and received these funds, which can also go towards keeping people on our payroll. And we will, the guide team has agreed to fill out the application for the forgiveness component, where the $100,000 basically turns into a grant. So there's no repayment provisions with that. And that was through Intercoastal Bank. So that's kind of why I bring up that historically we have banked with SunTrust. There were thousands and thousands of applications going in to SunTrust and some of the larger banks. But when we applied through Intercoastal, it was received pretty quickly. Continuation of our financial report. I always want to be transparent that we do receive a financial review each year from a outside accounting firm. And this year or last year rather, they take a look at several months of our books and track deposits and check disbursements and things of that nature. And I'm pleased to say that there was no findings of misuse of any of the funds or anything that stood out. Their only recommendation, again, is that we disperse funds so that we don't have over the $250,000 threshold for FDIC purposes. We are resuming our mission giving initiatives. Again, March is when we kind of started postponing some of those things because we just didn't know what it would look like. But now we're in this position where we need to get back to some of the things that we're used to doing. And one of those is supporting our mission giving. And we've actually done really well so far this year. And a lot of it is due to some of our non-cash items that we've been receiving. We do put a value on those. So when we get those in, we understand that's not funds coming directly into the church that we're sending out, but we do realize that somebody's taking the time and the effort and using their funds to purchase something that we're then the church is giving away. So you'll see that about $5,000 this year, 4,300, but I know that we have shoes coming in too. About $5,000 worth of items that we're donating to some of these centers that are seeing a huge uptick in their needs. So that's really cool. So as soon as we're kind of transitioning from some of these non-cash giving initiatives to mission giving, we may still keep some of these things around because it's just a neat way for people to demonstrate love. Mark, I'm going to have Mark go ahead and report on some SPRC things.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah, so we got some 3 items here we want to discuss today. Number 1 is our pastor of the West, Amy Armstead. Her official start date, as we know, is July 1st. And we, as a staff parish relations committee, and with the help of Scott as well, kind of helped establish some goals for Amy between her start date and the end of the year. And I want to kind of give an update on where we are with that. As we know, she just completed a 3-part series titled Fired Up. Did a wonderful job in that. Her passion for the move out west is very obvious. It comes through beautifully, and we are certainly lucky to have her here. To back up a little bit, SPRC did what we call non-interviews with 3 candidates for that position many months ago. We did give our opinions on who we wanted, but we really didn't have a final say in that. That was determined by the higher ups of the district and the conference. But she was unanimously picked by the SPRC. We all recognized through that interview process that she was going to be the right fit. If you've been fortunate enough to see her in her sermon series, it certainly appears that we have got this right, and that she is certainly the right fit to take on that project out west and our growth of the church out west. So she just completed that series. She has conducted, as you know, probably the 3 Pastor of the West happy hour Zoom meetings. She's in the process of trying to just get as much outreach into the congregation as possible through a very difficult time of a pandemic. She has met with representatives of some of our mission giving organizations that the church has supported over the last year or so. She's met with those individuals to kind of see how we can partner up in establishing a little bit more growth and start establishing the growth out west. Starting in August, kind of our goals through August through December, she's in the process of recruiting and developing a leadership team for that Western expansion. She is in the process of creating a mission and vision statement for that and establishing a Western launch team. She is also developing a budget for the balance of the 2020 year, and then going into 21-22 year 21 and 22 to establish a budget for those years as well. Also, the plan is to conduct an event on our Williamson property before the end of this year. Hopefully, we're going to see these numbers of the COVID-19 numbers start to flatten out a little bit, and we'll feel a little bit more comfortable doing something out there on our Western property. But if you probably recognize, if you've been out there is a very easy opportunity for us to social distance and to have some kind of an event out there between now and the end of the year. She's talked a little bit about the expansion and how she's going to do that. She's talked a lot about kind of growing our footprint out west through small groups, which has been a focus on of First United for the last couple of years, and she's going to continue to try to grow off of that through small group establishment and utilizing small groups and individuals with different spiritual gifts to kind of create almost like a pod system out west to help grow that, grow us in that direction. A second thing I want to discuss a little bit with the Director of Communications position. Director of Communications is obviously a vital part of our church, especially right now when we're doing mostly everything we do through live stream. Our current person who handles that is Sydney Green, who we hired a couple of years ago. She has accepted a new position a couple months ago with another organization, but she continues to assist us on Sundays. So she's been very, very helpful by continuing to be involved and in helping us handle Sunday morning services. Obviously, a very difficult process to find qualified candidates when we're going through a pandemic. The outreach and trying to find those candidates has been a little bit challenging. We continue to look for those candidates. Brett has helped us extensively in that process to try to find those candidates that have an interest in working for the church. We've done a couple, and we've done one interview so far to fill that position, but again, we are looking for more qualified candidates to narrow them down and to continue the interview process. Staff pay, Brett talked about that a little bit a moment ago, but since the stay-at-home order started a couple months ago, gosh, time flies. It seems like it was a couple months ago. It might have been longer than that. But the SPRC recommended to the guide team, and the guide team was committed to continuing to pay employees their normal wage. So when we had the stay-at-home order, whether employees were able to do any work from home or do their normal work from home, we continued to pay staff their normal wage. Recognizing the fact that we have to be good stewards of the church's finances, but we thought that was the right thing to do during that time. As we're getting back into these church reopenings, there are some positions that are part-time employees that are only working when we're in-person services. And so some of those positions have to be looked at going forward, whether we continue to pay those individuals. And we're looking at that right now, as a matter of fact. Brett, I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, if you'd stay on, if there's any questions for you at the end. So we'll move to operations. This is kind of my time to just talk about some random things and just update you on some just various things that are going on behind the scenes. When we closed down, and I may have said this before, maybe during one of the worship services when I was recorded, was that we had made a decision a couple years ago to change over to some new software, which is cloud-based, and it gives everyone the ability to log into that software from wherever they are, which we always had found that very valuable during a hurricane. You know, we'll close down for a week, prepping for a hurricane or the aftermath of one, and people can continue to work, or staff can continue to work. Two of the things that we added, though, to start having some of these meetings was Zoom. Right when we had to close, we did some research on Microsoft Teams and Zoom, determined that Zoom was better for us. So we have several staff members that are doing ministry with children or youth, or Scott's doing small groups, things like that on Zoom. And actually we found where that has led to several of our growth groups continuing on through Zoom, because we've been able to use it, and sometimes we can assist them with that. Team Viewer is a software that allows remote access to our server. While a lot of our stuff is kept on the server rather than on your local computer for safety reasons, Team Viewer allows those staff members to be at home and log into our server for access to those things. So that's why we can kind of see that we can continue on with a lot of the things we set out to do just by using those couple of neat features. And that also means that church leadership continues to meet. We haven't missed a guide team meeting. Mark had mentioned that SPRC continues to meet. All of that's being done via Zoom at this time. So business as usual as far as that goes. And I think we probably have better attendance at a lot of that stuff because you can connect in from wherever you are. You'll see a lot about the connection card. You'll hear a lot about the connection card. We struggled for the first several weeks of this, months maybe, with how do we connect with people? How do we know if they're here? How do we know if they're missing? So we went back to our connection card. That's what we did when we were in person. That's how we learned whether you were here or you had missed for 5 weeks because you were not completing that connection card. So you'll see that the online connection card is primarily the same. We have the QR code. The QR code is just an easy means of getting to the form. The form is and always will be on our website. So know that if you miss the QR code, you don't know where it is, and you want to fill out the connection card, it's under forms on our website. The QR code is the easy way to get to it. And we did take that from another church where we realized that for the majority of the people are not watching the service on their phone. So you'll take your phone out, you'll aim your camera at the QR code, and that will take you to the form. So you can fill out the form while you're watching worship on your phone. That gives us a good attendance number. It will allow us in the future to begin doing care calls. Hey, we have not seen you sign the connection card for a while. Are you worshiping online? And it's for visitors. We do have guests that are beginning to fill those out. So now we know who's watching. That's probably the best way that we've found so far to capture that information. I mean, we can go through Facebook comments and see if there's somebody in there, or YouTube comments for that matter. But actually, we find the majority of the people watch our stream through the website. So we are hoping that you continue to fill out the connection card. We'll go through some facility things real quick. A lot of these you may already know about. We're just reporting on it. We did have some major projects in the pipeline when this all came up, and we had to continue with those. One, because we were under contract for this stormwater pump, which desperately needed to be done. And that has resulted in me not having to go out there and pump it in the middle of a rainstorm. So you'll see that that doesn't look like much, but they're actually 2 5-horsepower submersible stormwater pumps that are in that tank. They put a new hatch on. There's a new control panel that's located on the back of that wall right there that you can see. And that was completed in April. A good chunk of the deposit was paid in 2019 funds. And that pumps all of the stormwater off the back portion of the property. So the rainwater that collects in that alley is now discharged the correct way into our swale next to the through heart lots. So that's a great thing that we were able to do. The lifespan on something like that is 25 to 30 years. We did have I think over Christmas break, have some of our ceiling fall in. For those of you that were around when the main sanctuary roof was replaced, I think in the 2010, 2011 range, maybe 2013, the main sanctuary roof was totally replaced, but the awning was not. So the water that comes off that second story can find its way through some type of leak. And then when you can't see the leak because of that board that's located in the ceiling there, it blew out. So it was a pretty considerable leak. And it was better to replace the entire roof so that it's sort of on schedule with the main building. And by the time we had uncovered all the rotten wood that was under there, the tile, and replaced the ceiling, which needed about 5 or 6 panels underneath there, painted, all of that, came to $18,000. We received another lightning strike. This time it didn't hit the building, but we determined that it came through our Spectrum line. We have cable lines that run our phones and internet, and we've traced it through most all of the offices and buildings. So in the midst of all the things that we're trying to do, we're also chasing down considerable insurance claim for blown out phones and internet and switches and computers that run a lot of our tech in the booth and things like that. So that's not something anyone would know about unless I tell you. So I like to always put that on the report because that's some things that staff works very hard on to do that are behind the scenes. So we categorize everything that was damaged, and we'll be submitting an insurance claim for that. For those items. So we've talked many times before about our sanctuary air handler, which is 25 years old. We did set up a task team last year, at the end of last year, which includes Dennis Dunn, Harold Rock, Cecil Underwood, and Bill Roan. They've done a considerable amount of work with me, helping me make sense of these proposals and how the work program will go. We did receive 4 proposals with the total project. This is the replacement of 2 air handlers and a control system, a chilled water pump, and the removal and replacement of the second-story wall for 218, between 218 and 298,000. So there's a big discrepancy between prices that our team has been looking into. The time frame for the project, meaning the amount of time that we will be under construction, varies between 3 and 6 weeks. The lead time on the unit, however, is 12 weeks. So it's a custom unit. Part of the reason why we keep talking about this is that when we do begin to resume larger in-person services again, whenever that is, just the ordering of the unit takes 12 weeks. So if you had a catastrophic repair that needed to be made to this unit, you're a minimum without air conditioning for 12 weeks. So it's seeming like this is becoming a good time to do it based on the fact that we have very limited attendance or may not be able to have any attendance at all, depending on what happens. The decision will be made this week, and we do have reserves available for the payment of this project. Let's talk about live stream real quick. I would say we had some complications this morning, but for the most part, I'm hopeful that everybody is pleased with the fact that we were able to very quickly move to 100% digital or virtual. That takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of coordination each week, especially when we're searching for a communications person too. So I hope that everyone also understands that there's a tremendous amount of work that goes in from Monday all the way till the next Sunday, trying to make sure that some of these things come together. And again, it is all dictated on technology. Occasionally you will see where streams are taken down. Facebook has an algorithm that sometimes will take down our feed. Today, our streaming service Boxcast found that we had a corrupted file. So that took, I guess, 56 minutes to figure out that we had a corrupted file and then drop that. So we're doing everything we can. Occasionally, we will see that there's stuff that's kind of beyond our control that messes some things up. But let's talk about some enhancements that we're trying to make to our live stream. We will be bringing back our floor camera. We had a floor camera that have some, because we brought people back into the building, had some concerns about where that camera was located. So we're going to be creating a stand or a box for that camera so that it's out of the way and doesn't create a hazard for the people that are physically present in the service. We will be changing out some lighting because, again, if you've been in person, you'll see that we actually have lighting staged on the floor to give a better look through our platform. And we're going to be putting in tally lights. Tally lights are a lighting system that is mounted on all of our cameras so that the speaker knows which camera to look at. That would probably be something that's similar to like a newsroom. All enhancements we're trying to make because we need to do some things a little bit better on live stream, and those will help tremendously. We are taping the traditional service, finding where we have approximately 100 people watching that service each week, and that does take a lot of work, but it actually benefited us this morning because we had to cancel our in-person services with our live stream, which is part of that. Despite some of the issues that even that had, we had something. We had a new service today that we were able to put up. So the traditional service is taped. The 9 a.m. is live, and that's the way that Scott prefers to do that. There are churches that tape all of their services and then just release them on their different platforms. I guess the one thing I forgot to mention real quick, and then I'll turn it over to Julia, is that we are working on a chat function. I think we'll probably come to a decision this week on what we want to use, and then we'll put that on our website. We have to try to find ways to connect, and Facebook really is the only platform right now where we can have that interaction and through a chat function. So we're hoping that we we developed something that allows us to share verses and have communication with people that are watching on the website as well. Julia, all you.
Great, thanks, Brett. And good afternoon to everyone. I'm here to give a report regarding our Williamson property. And the good news is that we're continuing to move forward. The buyer still wants to proceed with this sale. And again, he is going to buy all but 25 acres of the property that we have out west. What has been the biggest holdup is trying to coordinate with Volusia County and the buyer and us regarding where the county wants to put some retention areas associated with widening Williamson Boulevard. And we had some meetings set up. The pandemic came through and of course just sent everything kind of topsy-turvy. But we did have a meeting this week, which was really good. It looks like things will be moving forward. The county was receptive to our suggestions on where we would like to have the retention areas. And it also works very well for what the buyer wants to do with the parcel that he wants to buy. And so we're very hopeful that we'll be able to come to some sort of written agreement soon and continue moving forward with the sale. Some just kind of details coming out of this is more than likely sale is not going to be approved until 2021. There's still quite a bit of paperwork and due diligence that needs to be done, and it just takes some time to get through this whole process. There is a covenant restriction on the property when we bought it that says we can't use it for anything that is non-church related, but that is actually going to expire in about 6 weeks or so. And so we'll have absolutely no bearing on the sale or how we move forward dealing with this buyer at all. So that's really good news. You may see come up that the area is going to be rezoned, or at least it's going to be put to the city for some rezoning. And that is for rezoning purposes related to what the buyer wants to do with his parcel. The parcel that we retain, the 25 acres, we are not going to be changing the zoning on that. We are hopeful that because there's some stuff going on that we'll be able to extend our timeline as far as having to put anything to the city about our plans for that area. But we are not going to be rezoning it for First United's use. As far as we know, the buyer is not looking to do anything too drastic as far as rezoning. It would mostly be for things like multifamily or multi-use for the land. He's thinking things along the lines of assisted living, but maybe also medical offices or those type of things that would be supported in that area. I think that's all I have.
The only thing I'll add real quick is that if you've seen, there's a tremendous amount of development in that area. Every time you drive by there, you'll find that it seems like there's something new going on, and they're actually proceeding with that road widening all the way up until Strickland Range. But I did learn the other day that it's very likely that a portion of Strickland Range, which they're actually calling Flomich for whatever reason, will proceed west, south of the Williamson property. So if you're familiar with where the Williamson property is, it's kind of our southeast corner is right at the corner of Strickland Range and Williamson. And that road will be extended west for approximately half the distance to I-95, which we will be in some conversations with that development on how we can make that accessible to whatever type of development the church decides to do on Williamson. So that's actually something that's pretty neat and exciting. We'll move to question and answer. Again, if you have questions, you're going to go to the Q&A, which should show up on your Zoom taskbar. We only have one question so far, so make sure you get those in because we will answer them. And then if there's no more that are coming in, we will go ahead and end the webinar. Can the panelists see the questions? Okay, so let me read this question. I think that Scott and I should probably answer this one. It does play into a conversation we had just the other day. It's from Micah and Phil Routon. Recently, a number of larger / mega churches have announced they will delay in-person worship until January 2021. Has First United considered this? Scott, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Once again, let me just start off by saying thanks to everybody for being on here and for the leadership. Sorry I was late. I was actually texting Tammy and Sydney about uploading a better video file for long-term sermon stuff with all the joy that we had today with the experience. Live stream stuff. So yeah, we have thought about that. That's one of the reasons we sent out a video on Friday, that extra thing. We talked a little bit about that. Especially since Andy Stanley at Large Church up in Atlanta, he had a big event where he announced that they would not do live worship until 2021 at the earliest. And we've been continuing to look at and paying attention to, and I'm appreciative of the folks at First United who are saying, hey, we're not going to come back at this time because we don't feel comfortable coming back. And so we want to honor that. There are some folks who really want to come into the building because there's a sense of connectedness to the building. So kind of holding all things in tension. Like today, I thought we did a good job with our volunteer. When they tested positive, we didn't have any real concerns about a COVID-19 spread amongst people because of where the volunteer was, et cetera, and that everybody's been wearing a mask, practicing social distancing, all of that. So we feel like it's fairly secure as it can be on a Sunday morning from safety-wise. I will say we had hoped to, as you know, you've heard, we were ready to kind of start moving a little bit forward and opening up and doing more, but the numbers just don't allow that to happen. So we kind of are just staying where we are for the time being. We'll continue to monitor. We will say that if the government comes back out, if the county or the local or state and change their guidelines, like if we go back into lockdown or whatever you want to call it, we will certainly follow those rules. I would find it hard pressed to believe that we would begin to change and reopen up and do more than we're doing now if the numbers stay where they are. That's probably the best answer we've got. Julia and Brett.
Well, I think, yeah, Scott, and the one thing that I think you and I had talked about is as it relates to those mega churches is I think that they were, some of their decision had played into the scope and size of their churches and not being able to track who came to what service or where.
Right.
I thought that had specifically to them and how they're a little bit different from us.
Right. Yeah. Like especially a church that has 20,000 people on a Sunday morning, they don't have quite the ability we do to track that down. So, you got another question in chat, Brett? Do you see it?
Sure. This is from Stan and Lorraine Robertson. It says, why did we take the government loan to pay our employees when it was mentioned that although giving is down, expenses are down more? And they, the guide team did make that decision. So know that that's not, a decision that, a sole person made. And it was made because they felt like it was in the best interest of the church to accept those funds. Although we know that we are doing the best we can with expenses and giving, we also know that's continued, and if we continue on a trend for 7% giving for the entire year, that is $100,000. It is our budget for each year is about 1.2 million. I don't know the exact right off the top of my head. So that played into the decision-making process. I want to make sure that although it says loan, it was through the SBA and has a forgivable component to it, and that we're hoping that we're able to continue on. Does anyone else have anything?
Brett, I was going to say on that too. One of the things with the guide team, there's a lot of discussion on guide team about that to make that decision. And I do know that one of the things when we had to make the decision, there were some time constraints, and we're like, we had like 2 weeks, or not even that. We were less than 2 weeks, and we had to make a decision on that. And at that time, we had no idea exactly where we were going to be. But I remember very specifically the guide team saying that we were going to take this because of the time we were going to accept this opportunity with the understanding that we were going to use it and have the forgiveness paid off. And if we couldn't do that, we weren't going to do it. Right. I mean,
that's correct. Yeah. Julia, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was exactly what I remembered as well. It was kind of a first come, first served, and we definitely wanted to get in on that in case we needed it rather than let the opportunity pass. But again, same thing. It was not a loan. It needed to be a grant.
I don't see any further questions. We'll give you one more minute. If you have something to add, please type that into the Q&A. And if we don't have anything else, I just want to thank everyone for attending. And again, we'll make this available on our website midweek here after I figure out the recording. And hopefully one day we can get back to some live in-person town halls and some other things like that. But I think that if this turned out to be successful and the participants were pleased, we would continue with this frequently. It's July and we're just now having our second town hall, so I think that we'll really push to have another one right at the beginning of September, so that we honor the commitment of having at least 4 each year to share this type of information. So I don't see any other.
Brett, on that note, with that, I mean, we might as well let everybody know that October 25th, we were scheduled to host the North Regional Charge Conference for all the district. That's still our date for Charge Conference is October the 25th. But my understanding is an email is coming out this week, and we're going to learn it's going to be all virtual.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the panelists for connecting in. Hope everyone has a good day.